Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Riyadh to meet with his Russian counterpart on Tuesday to work out a deal to end the Ukraine conflict. Key European leaders and NATO chief are holding an emergency meeting in Paris as the US leaves them out in the cold in talks with Russia on Ukraine's fate. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi receives Qatar's Amir at the airport. The West Asian leader is in India for a 2-day state visit. India's overall exports rise to 74.97 billion US dollars in January this year, compared to 69.72 billion USD in January last year. And Pope Francis is hospitalized in Rome since Friday. The Vatican says he has a complex clinical situation and will remain in hospital as long as necessary. US and Russian representatives are gathering in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh on Tuesday to figure out a deal to end the Ukraine conflict. Europe has been left out of the talks and is trying to chart the way forward, with several leaders holding an emergency meeting in Paris. Ukraine too has made it clear that it doesn't recognize any talks which are held in its absence about its own fate. But the US is pressing on, driven by its President Donald Trump's zeal to cut a deal. Saeed Absarul Hassan reports.
Amidst the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, the rift between the European Union and the United States has grown increasingly evident. European leaders have gathered at the Élysée Palace in France in response to a call from the French President Emmanuel Macron on Ukraine's fate. But 3,000 kilometers away, Russia and US officials are meeting in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to chalk out a strategy for potential talks between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Riyadh on Monday after Trump hinted at talks with Putin. Rubio met with Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan ahead of the discussions with Russian representatives, which are focused on ending the Ukraine war.
With no time set, but it could be very soon.
Like this month?
Well, it'll be soon. We'll see what happens. But they're meeting right now, and that's more. I mean, this should have been done 4 years ago, 3 years ago, before it started. But it should have been done immediately after it started, as opposed to now, 3 years later.
Russia confirmed that the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will engage in talks with the top US officials, including Secretary of State Rubio, on Tuesday. These discussions will center on ending the war in Ukraine and restoring the full scope of Russia-US relations.
First of all, the contacts that will take place on Tuesday will be about the restoration of the entire set of Russian-American relations and the preparation of possible negotiation on Ukraine. That is all I can say. So let's wait. As for Kirill Dmitriev, no comment here. I said that Lavrov and Usakov are flying out on behalf of the president.
The Europeans are worried about being left out of negotiations for peace in Ukraine, and the gathering in Paris has been summoned to chart out the way forward. But even within the European Union, there are growing differences in how to handle the US and how to handle the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the implications it has for its transatlantic allies.
We have to make sure that Europe overcomes the challenges of the future in a strong and sovereign manner and with its back straight. This involves the question of how we can continue to support Ukraine and ensure that it is not left alone now.
We welcome the restart of the high-level talks between Russia and the United States. We acknowledged with joy and calm that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin talked for a long time.
Poland will support Ukraine as it has done so far, organizationally in accordance with our financial capabilities. In terms of humanitarian and military aid, we do not anticipate sending Polish soldiers to Ukraine.
On Monday, before flying to Riyadh, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov asked why Europe would be invited to join possible talks on a peace settlement in Ukraine if European politicians want the war to carry on.
The European philosophy has not gone anywhere, so I don't know what they can do at the negotiation table. If they continue scheming some tricky ideas on freezing the conflict while themselves, per usual, as they like and usually do, just mean continue the war, why invite them there?
Ukrainian President Zelensky has rejected the idea of talks in Riyadh. He emphasized that the Ukraine should be part of any discussions about its own future.
Ukraine will not take part in the talks in Saudi Arabia. Ukraine did not know anything about it. Ukraine regards any negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine as ones that have no result, and we cannot recognize any agreements about us without us, and will not recognize such agreements.
The eyes of the international community are fixed on Riyadh as the outcome of this meeting could alter the course of history and reshape global power dynamics for years to come. Syed Afsarul Hassan for DD India.
And we'll return to the story with our expert guest to talk about it a little further, a little later in the show. But for the time being, we're moving on. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday said that he is committed to a U.S. proposal to take over Gaza and displace its Palestinian residents, as Washington's top diplomat was in Saudi Arabia to push the plan opposed by Arab states. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said its forces will remain at 5 strategic points inside Lebanon beyond Tuesday, when the deadline for troop withdrawal from the neighboring country under a fragile ceasefire expires. DD India's Dheeraj Das has more.
Holding pictures of their loved ones, families of Israeli hostages still held in Gaza marked 500 days of captivity on Monday, urging authorities to secure their release. Dozens of demonstrators were seen marching to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in the morning, chanting slogans and carrying banners that read, "Home now," before meeting lawmakers in parliament.
It's been 500 days since the October 7th massacre, and still over 70 hostages are held captive by Hamas. And as much as we are encouraged by the return, we are terrified by the situation of those who come back, and we're demanding our government and the rest of the world to end this crisis right now.
With a plight to make sure that this current deal continues until we see every single last hostage back home. Now, the fact that it's 500 days is unimaginable.
To mark the 500 days of captivity for the hostages, people of Be'eri, one of the hardest hit communities during the October 7 Hamas attack, returned to the uninhabitable kibbutz on Monday. The tightly knit community of Be'eri, located just 4.5 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, lost a tenth of its members during the attack. More than 130 people were killed in the kibbutz, and 32 hostages were taken to Gaza.
We are walking after 500 days that we know that we don't know nothing about this enemy. We stand in front of Gaza Strip, and I'll tell you that nothing changed.
We are here in Be'eri, come back here in the place that we born here. We love the place, but also had here the most horrible time in the 7th of October, and we want to shout from here, from our home, to bring back everybody that's still there. All the hostages are still there, alive or dead.
As mediators are pushing toward the second phase of Gaza's ceasefire deal, Israeli military killed a Hamas leader in southern Lebanon's Sidon area on Monday. Mohammed Shaheen was the head of the operations department of Hamas in Lebanon, and that he had recently been involved in promoting terrorist plots with Iranian direction and funding from Lebanese territory against Israeli citizens. The head of Hezbollah group said that Israeli troops must withdraw from Lebanese territory in full by a February 18 deadline, saying it had no pretext to maintain a military presence in any post in southern Lebanon.
Today, we are in front of a requirement. This requirement, it is in the face of the Lebanese government. On February 18, Israel must withdraw from all Lebanese territory, which it occupied during its aggression. In return, the Lebanese army deployed and is deploying. They are present.
There had been growing alarm that the ceasefire agreement could unravel before the end of the 42-day first stage of the truce pact in effect since January 19, leaving many families worried about the return of their loved ones. So far, 19 Israeli and 5 Thai hostages have been released, with 73 still in captivity. Dheeraj Das report for DD India.
Now, a week before Germany's general election, tens of thousands of people joined the demonstrations against the far right in Berlin. According to local police, around 30,000 demonstrators took part in the rally. In a press release, the organizers called for a decisive fight against right-wing extremism, racism, as well as commitment to social justice, fair working conditions, climate protection and responsible international politics. Speaking on stage, actor and musician Herbert Grönemeyer urged the crowd to vote in the upcoming elections, saying that German democracy was under attack from enemies of democracy who wanted to destroy liberal coexistence. Now, chaos and uncertainty have gripped the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as M23 rebels, backed by Rwanda, seized control of one more key city of Bukavu on Sunday. This marks another devastating step in the ongoing conflict that has already claimed thousands of lives in the region. Have a look.
After weeks of advancing, M23 forces have seized control of Bukavu, South Kivu's capital, with little resistance from retreating Congolese troops. The rebel group is consolidating its position, and with Bukavu's fall, M23 now controls key areas around Lake Kivu, including Goma. The involvement of troops from Rwanda and Burundi has further escalated the already volatile situation.
We are all very, very concerned about an open regional war in over Eastern DRC. And this, we reiterated the need for caution and the need for M23 and its supporters to disarm and withdraw from the Goma airport and other occupied territories.
The withdrawal of Congolese troops from Bukavu has caused a power vacuum, sparking looting and violence. While some locals see M23 as a stabilizing force, their advance raises concerns over further instability and human rights violations. The involvement of neighboring troops has heightened fears of a wider regional war, fueled by long-standing tensions dating back to the 1990s Rwandan genocide. The international community urges de-escalation, with the African Union and the UN warning of catastrophic consequences from a wider war. The UN estimates 350,000 displaced people, with thousands fleeing into neighboring Burundi, where authorities are struggling to accommodate the influx of refugees.
This new escalation should not become an open conflict that will disrupt and impact on humanitarian activities and the already very weakened social fabric in the region. The only way to solve the problem in Eastern DRC is for all parties to sit around the table.
The conflict with M23 has lasted more than 3 years, with Kinshasa accusing Kigali of wanting to control the mining and trade of minerals used in batteries and electronic equipments, and also of trying to appropriate land for agriculture, and it has but heightened fears of a breakup of DR Congo. With Aarti Rana's report, DD India.
And still to come on DD India Newshour. India's Finance Minister launches a credit guarantee scheme for the nation's micro, small and medium enterprises. The BJP alleges a UPA-era scam after Elon Musk's Doge cancels a $21 million USAID fund to promote voting in India.
Timeless, boundless and infinite. The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture. From the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic. World's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I am Gautam Roy. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi received the Amir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who arrived in New Delhi on a two-day visit. The Amir of Qatar is on a state visit to India from the 17th to the 18th of February. During his visit, the Amir will hold discussions with President Draupadi Murmu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, covering various aspects of the bilateral relations. This is the second visit of the Amir of Qatar to India. The Amir of Qatar earlier visited India on a state visit in March 2015. The Amir of the State of Qatar will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday. India and Qatar have deep-rooted historical ties of friendship, trust and mutual respect. In recent years, the ties between the two countries include areas such as trade, investment, energy, technology, culture and people to people, and they've continued to strengthen through the decades. Now, while sharing a few pictures of him welcoming the Amir of Qatar at the airport on social media, Prime Minister Modi wished him a fruitful stay in India and said that he looks forward to their meeting tomorrow. India's export performance is showcasing impressive growth and resilience. In January 2025, the country's total exports surged to $74.97 billion, marking a significant increase from the previous year. With strong growth across key sectors such as electronics, pharmaceuticals and gems and jewelry, India's export story is becoming a symbol of optimism. In the next report, we take a closer look at the remarkable progress and what it means for India's position on the global trade map.
India's export story is one of growth, resilience and optimism. January 2025 saw a significant leap in the country's trade data. Total exports for January 2025 stood at an impressive $74.97 billion, clocking an increase from $69.72 billion in January 2024. Overall, April 2024 to January 2025 total exports up by 7.21%, totaling $682.59 billion, thus an increase of $46 billion. With an average monthly export of $70 to $75 billion, India's exports will exceed $800 billion in 2025-2026. The surge was led by a remarkable jump in electronics, pharmaceuticals and gems and jewelry exports. Incredible growth was seen in electronics exports, which skyrocketed by an astounding 79%. India's manufacturing capabilities in this sector are becoming globally competitive thanks to the government's production-linked incentive scheme, driving more investment and innovation. Pharmaceuticals also had a strong showing, with exports climbing up by 21.46%, reaffirming India's role as the pharmacy of the world and a leading exporter of affordable medicines. Even amidst global challenges, gems and jewelry exports saw a 15.9% increase, proving India's resilience in the luxury goods market. With strong exports across sectors and growing global confidence, India is not just expanding its markets, but positioning itself as a major player on the world stage. From electronics to pharmaceuticals and luxury goods, India's export success story continues to unfold. The nation's economic future looks brighter than ever. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Nirmala Sitharaman, launched the Mutual Credit Guarantee Scheme for MSMEs in Mumbai on Monday. The Finance Minister said that this will boost the MSMEs, which have been focused upon in the last 3 budgets. The scheme will facilitate loans up to 100 crore rupees for MSMEs for the purchase of machinery or equipment without collateral.
Government guaranteed loan up to 100 crores, 60% of which will be guaranteed. So there are immense lot of steps taken over the last few years, but this year particularly the extent to which government guarantee also goes to strengthen it will make a big difference to MSMEs.
And the minister also attended the celebration of International Customs Day at the Nhava Sheva port in Mumbai on Monday. During her address, she emphasized the invaluable contributions of the officials of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, who put their lives at risk to prevent illegal goods from entering the country.
This is a very big recognition for people who are actually in the front, like the soldiers who are posted in the border areas. You are actually the unarmed soldiers who are halting those unlawful activities happening at the borders. You're not allowing certain illegal things to come in. You're recognizing and probably smelling it even much before it happens. You're preventing it from getting into the hinterland. And therefore, the contribution that is being made is unmatched.
Now, in the US, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency is at the center for controversy brewing in India, as it cancelled a $21 million India voter fund along with several other countries. The BJP and some other leaders have dubbed this as the biggest scam in human history, claiming it exposes foreign interference in democratic processes.
A major political controversy has erupted after reports surfaced that the United States, through its foreign aid agency USAID, allocated $21 million in 2012 to boost voter turnout in India. The BJP has launched a scathing attack on the Congress, accusing it of enabling foreign influence in India's electoral process. Economist Sanjeev Sanyal called it the biggest scam in human history, questioning the whereabouts of millions of dollars reportedly funneled into political initiatives across South Asia. $21 million for voter turnout in India, $29 million for Bangladesh's political landscape, and $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal.
We have had now suspicions about what has been happening for some time, which is the reason that the Indian government in recent years had been very strict about FCRA. Many of you may have even complained about it. But the fact is that this was the reason we were doing it. Similarly, we have evicted USAID from collecting our Indian medical data. So if somebody else controls the data, they can manipulate me in any which way they do. And they were not just doing it for medical data. The social policies in this country were being manipulated. They were introducing all kinds of agendas about how, for example, how to treat women, the rules and regulations relating to that. All kinds of things were being done, which are absolutely shocking. But you can now, I hope, understand why we were so paranoid about this whole thing.
The report also triggered strong reactions from BJP leaders. MP Sudhanshu Trivedi put the Congress squarely in the dock.
आज हम साफ-साफ पूछना चाहते हैं, ये कौन सी शक्तियां हैं जो भारत में इस प्रकार चुनावी प्रक्रिया को प्रभावित करने, परिवर्तित करने या उसके अंदर कोई समस्या उत्पन्न करने के हेतु से आर्थिक अनुदान पाती हुई दिखाई पड़ रही थी। ये बहुत गहरा संदेह हमारे मन में उत्पन्न होता है।
Adding to the controversy, BJP leader Amit Malviya shared a 2012 report detailing a memorandum of understanding between the Election Commission of India and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, funded by USAID. Malviya accused the American investor George Soros of having significant influence over India's electoral process, drawing links between him and the Congress-led UPA government. He further alleged that the UPA systematically allowed anti-India forces to infiltrate national institutions, weakening the country from within. Senior advocate Mahesh Jethmalani has now called for a full-scale investigation into the alleged US interference. He urged Indian agencies to seize USAID's account in the country and trace the money trail, warning that foreign influence could be deeper than expected. These developments follow after US President Donald Trump appointed tech entrepreneur Elon Musk last month as the head of newly established Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. The department tasked with reducing wasteful expenditure said that it had cancelled millions in foreign aid, including the $21 million allegedly earmarked for India's voter turnout initiative. Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
Pope Francis, who was hospitalized for bronchitis 4 days ago, still faces a complex clinical picture, according to the Vatican. Doctors have changed treatment for Pope Francis as he is still in hospital. After initially cancelling events through until Monday, the Vatican said the Pope's weekly Wednesday audience would not go ahead either. The Vatican also said that results of the tests carried out in recent days and on Monday have demonstrated a polymicrobial infection of the respiratory tract that has led to a further change in treatment. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world as well. Now, people in the northern Japanese prefecture of Akita are welcoming tourists with a traditional festival that features dozens of Kamakura snow huts. This year, snow piled up over 1 meter high for the first time in 3 years, making it easier for the staff to build around 60 huts that make up the festival. BYD, a pioneer in electric vehicle market, showcased its latest intelligent driving features, including autonomous navigation, seamless lane changes and remote parking. These features are available not only in luxury models but also in entry-level vehicles. South Korean authorities said on Monday that DeepSeek would not be available from local app stores pending a review of the Chinese AI startup's handling of user data. The app was removed from the app stores while authorities thoroughly examine DeepSeek's personal data processing practices to ensure compliance with local laws. And still to come on DD India Newshour. We'll be speaking with our expert guests about how high are the global strategic stakes, with the US engaging Russia and Riyadh over Ukraine's fate, keeping Europe out of the talks.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Riyadh to meet with his Russian counterpart on Tuesday to work out a deal to end the Ukraine conflict. Key European leaders and NATO chief are holding an emergency meeting in Paris as the US leaves them out in the cold in talks with Russia on Ukraine's fate. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi receives Qatar's Amir at the airport. The West Asian leader is in India for a 2-day state visit. India's overall exports rise to $74.97 billion in January this year, compared to $69.72 billion in January last year. And Pope Francis is hospitalized in Rome since Friday. The Vatican says he has a complex clinical situation and will remain in hospital for as long as necessary. And let's now talk about what's been happening in Riyadh as well as in Paris with Ukraine's and even perhaps Europe's fate. In balance, we have Yashwardhan Sinha joining us, former senior diplomat. Good evening to you, Mr. Sinha. What do you make of what is happening in terms of how the basically the fate of Ukraine is being decided between the US and Russia in Riyadh, and Europe is wondering why has it been left out and what should it do if things move forward?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on your show. I think what we are witnessing is an age of complete disruption, not only in domestic politics in the US, but also US's foreign policy and relations with key countries. The telephone call between President Trump and President Putin seems to have yielded this forthcoming meeting. I believe it's going to be held tomorrow between Foreign Minister Lavrov of Russia and Secretary of State Marco Rubio of the US. And this, from what I understand, it's going to be talking about the entire gamut of Russia-US relations. Obviously, the focus will be on seeing how the Russia-Ukraine war can be brought to a conclusion. And I think that is why Europe is now feeling left out, because they are not on the table, at least for the talks tomorrow, scheduled for tomorrow. And then there is a summit, I believe, happening in Paris, where the major European countries, including UK, Germany, France, Spain, and a few, Italy, and Denmark, and a few others, will be meeting to discuss what Europe's strategy should be in dealing with this US initiative.
What do you think is the motivation of, first of all, the US in tackling this issue in the manner that it has? That it has sort of told Ukraine that it cannot, retain its sovereignty. It cannot hope to turn back the clock on the lost territory that it has. It cannot hope to join NATO. Does Donald Trump just want to stop footing the bill for the war in Ukraine and perhaps for overall European security, or is there more to it?
Well, certainly stop footing the bill for an almost sort of war that's dragged on for so long and no sort of prospects of ending. So an initiative certainly was required. And I think it's welcome, because it's welcome for the rest of the world. I mean, don't forget, as our External Affairs Minister has said on many occasions, that the world is not just Europe. There are other countries that are deeply impacted by what is happening. And I think the countries of the South, the global South in particular, are being adversely impacted by this ongoing war. And in many ways, a senseless war, because in the past, if you recall the history, the parties had agreed to the Minsk I agreement or protocol in 2014 and the Minsk II agreement of 2015. And if both parties had adhered to those agreements, and even 1 month after the war began, there was a talk of neutrality of Ukraine being discussed, but then again, that itself was stymied by other parties. So it's unfortunate that this war has dragged on for so long. There is certainly, a scope for an initiative that will bring an expeditious end to the war. What the contours of that peace agreement will be, it will be hazardous to guess. But I don't see Russia giving up too much territory. And if you recall, before the war started, Russia had Crimea and just a few parts or areas of Ukraine under which it had occupied. But since then, since the war began, they've captured quite a lot of territory in Donetsk and the Donbas area. And so what the compromise, or if a compromise at all is agreed upon, we'll have to wait and see. The meeting in Riyadh is very important, and then subsequent meetings between negotiators. President Trump has said that he will not leave Ukraine out, but I don't expect that Ukraine can continue maintaining its hard position regarding retrieving all the land that it has lost. So I would not like to second guess what the negotiators will agree on the negotiating table.
What about Europe then? Europe feels that although it may not, it recognizes the fact that it has not contributed to the war effort in Ukraine as the US, but it feels that it has perhaps even higher stakes than the US in ensuring that Ukraine gets a fair deal, which ensures that such sort of a conflict cannot break out in the future, and it definitely does not concern any other European country. The Russian possibility of a Russian advance there shouldn't be there at all. So do you think that in any way is it possible for Europe to work something out while being kept out of the negotiations like this?
Europe is certainly impacted because, after all, they are the closest to the war zone, and there is understandably some anxiety and trepidation as to what will happen as far as Ukraine is concerned. Of course, Europe has also invested, not necessarily in terms of money so much, though they have provided arms, etc., but they have invested politically a great deal in shoring up support for Ukraine and for supporting Ukraine. That puts them in a rather difficult situation. So I think we'll have to wait and see how things turn out. President Trump doesn't seem to be particularly inclined to involve the Europeans, but I don't think the Europeans can be ignored either. So certainly they will have some inputs, if not directly on the negotiations, certainly with the Ukraine, considering the support that they've extended. In fact, just today I read a statement by the UK Prime Minister, Starmer, that he prepared to send British troops. Now, I'm not sure whether that would really be required or will actually happen, but obviously there is a view in Europe that if they're being marginalized from any peace negotiations between the two principals, the US and Russia, and they will have to come up with a plan of action because they feel threatened by what's happened in Ukraine. However, Russia has been very clear as to what its aims was in terms of the neutrality of Ukraine. Obviously, they do not want NATO creeping up right up to its borders. And if you recall, past assurances given by the American leadership to Russia, I think these obviously have been observed in the breach since then. So Russia is understandably was alarmed. I am not in any way trying to justify what Russia did subsequently, but what I'm trying to say is that they have genuine concerns, so do the Europeans. So I think the best way forward would be a negotiated settlement that ensures that while Ukraine remains an independent country, it is not seen as a threat to Russia, or doesn't become a threat to Russia.
Mm-hmm. And what are the options for Europe here? It completely depends perhaps on which way does the US take in trying to settle this conflict in Ukraine. But what can really Europe do if the US says that it's my way or the highway, and I don't want to spend any more money on this war and on ensuring that you guys pay for your own defenses? What can Europe do? Does it have the kind of wherewithal to ensure that Ukraine remains safe and Europe itself remains safe?
Well, they're between a rock and a hard place because their economies are not doing too well, though I saw a report today that the Spanish economy is doing rather well. However, I think they would need to pay up. That is something that President Trump has been talking about even in his first term as far as NATO is concerned. And I think it's only fair that, if there is some sort of umbrella that the US is providing, I think Europe should sort of bear a fair share of the burden. But what that would be, I mean, whether it be 5% of the GDP or less, 2.5%, all that, of course, has to be decided by the parties concerned. But there is, as I said, obviously not some, but some great concern in Europe that they are being left out of something that is crucially important to them. Ideally, of course, if they could make their peace with Russia in terms of allowing investments and trade, supply of gas, oil. Of course, the European position is they want to lessen their dependence on Russian energy, but that's not happening. I mean, it would have happened to some extent, but there is considerable amount of energy supplies, that especially gas, that flows from Russia to Europe. So I think there has to be a negotiated settlement. Europe obviously needs to be comfortable, but you cannot hold on to your rhetoric of the past, because that will get you nowhere. So in negotiations, obviously, some sort of compromises are made. And of course, as President Trump, you're aware, is known for the art of the deal, his book, The Art of the Deal, and he's looking to see how he can strike a deal to end what has become a brutal conflict, and in my opinion, quite a senseless one at that.
Yes, but a deal in whose favor is the big question, because Ukraine at the moment, it seems to be caught between pincer. On one side is the US and the other side Russia. The US also wants to get the critical minerals that Ukraine has cheaply, because it says that it's already footed the bill for that. And of course, Russia would squeeze Ukraine to the extent that, well, Russia essentially believes that Ukraine and Russia are one country, and Ukraine as a sovereign entity should not exist.
Well, I think that's not going to happen, because the Americans are also going to be mindful of the fact they can't play entirely into the Russian hands, because they have their own history. However, I think in a bargain between Russia and the Ukraine, obviously militarily the Russians have the upper hand, and obviously the dice is loaded against Ukraine. But I do not think Ukraine will be abandoned in any way, and they may have to settle for less than the territory that they have lost, or at least some sort of compromise. I really don't know how that compromise will be reached, but will be left to the negotiators. But I don't see Russia walking out completely from all the areas that they have occupied since the beginning of the war, and certainly in 2014 when they occupied Crimea. But these are details and issues that need to be negotiated. It's still very early days, and I think subsequent after this meeting in Riyadh, perhaps some contours might emerge, and then we don't know, perhaps a meeting at the highest level between Presidents Trump and Putin might actually seal the deal after negotiators from both sides have arrived at some sort of modus vivendi.
Let's see what happens, because a lot hangs in balance, much beyond Ukraine's fate. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Mr. Sinha.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Now, on Monday, the Assam police filed the first information report against Pakistani national Ali Tawqir Sheikh and others for alleged anti-India activities. This action followed a directive from the Assam State Cabinet led by Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma on Sunday. The Cabinet instructed the police to investigate whether Sheikh's alleged association with Congress MP Gaurav Gogoi's wife, Elizabeth Clare Gogoi, a British national, had any implications for the nation's security and sovereignty. Meanwhile, Congress MP Gaurav Gogoi has termed the allegations against his wife as baseless.
It has been seen that till now that the activities of the said Ali Tawqir Sheikh are prejudicial to national security. He has been making utterances, and it seems that his activities hurt the broader spectrum of national security. So it has to be seen as to what exactly he has done, which is suspected already, and whether there are other people involved in the conspiracy with him. Who are these others? Are they within India, without India, within Assam, in the rest of India? So they will all be looked at.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the country. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar inaugurated the Advanced Entrepreneurship and Skill Development Program campus at the National Agri-Food and Biomanufacturing Institute in Mohali on Monday. The Central Board of Secondary Education has refuted claims related to paper leaks of the 2025 board examinations and access to them being circulated on social media platforms. The board has said that officers are actively monitoring and taking action against those responsible for spreading false information. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on the Amir of Qatar. Both the leaders discussed the growing ties between India and Qatar. And still to come on DD India Newshour. A special report from the erstwhile left-wing extremism-infested Bastar district, which is fast leaving its blood-soaked days behind as security forces wipe out Naxals. And Chile's Joaquin Neiman wins Live Golf Adelaide at the Grange Golf Club in South Australia.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I am Gautam Roy. Now, the Bastar district of the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh was once gripped by fear because of Naxal insurgents, but now it's scripting a new chapter of transformation. The combined strategies of the central and state governments over decades, along with intensified operations by security forces, have shaken the foundations of Naxalism there. DD India's Somesh Patel reports.
Security forces in Bastar are relentlessly striking against Naxal insurgents. As a result, in 2024 and the early months of 2025, they have achieved significant success. According to data, in the past 13 months, 305 Naxals have been killed, 1,177 have been arrested, and 985 have surrendered. In Chhattisgarh, within the first 40 days of this year alone, 87 Naxals have been eliminated in encounters, with 71 of them falling in the Bastar region. India's Home Minister Amit Shah has also stated that Naxalism in Chhattisgarh will be completely eradicated by March 31st, 2026.
नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने तय किया है कि इस नक्सलवाद को और नक्सलवाद के विचार को दोनों को मूल समेत हम इस देश से उखाड़कर फेंक देंगे और शांति को प्रस्तावित करेंगे। पूरे देश में नक्सलवाद को समाप्त करने में नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार को सफलता मिली है और मैं आपके प्रदेश में कहकर आया हूं 31/3/2026 के दिन को नक्सलवाद को इस देश से आखिरी सलाम करने का समय सुनिश्चित कर दिया गया है।
The continuous operations by security forces have severely weakened Naxal organizations. Many top Naxal leaders have either been killed or have surrendered. Bastar IG Sundar Raj P has said, "We have been conducting sustained operations in Naxal-affected areas. Peace is now being restored."
In order to bring an end to left-wing extremism in Bastar region, we are implementing a comprehensive action plan. In the recent months, special forces like DRG, STF, Bastar fighters, Cobra, CRPF, BSF, ITBP, SSB, CF and other local forces have conducted effective operations against the banned and illegal Maoist outfit. During these operations, the last 14 months we have recovered more than 300 Naxal dead bodies along with huge quantity of graded weapons like.
With the decline of Naxalism in Bastar, a new wave of development is emerging. The efforts of the government and security forces will continue, ensuring that this region moves towards complete peace and prosperity.
Bastar, once considered a stronghold of Naxalism, is now moving towards transformation. The continuous elimination in Naxal militant is a result of joint plan by the central and state government, along with all-out operation with secretary force. Somesh Patel, DD India, Chhattisgarh.
India's Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan joined the 2026 Founders' Day celebrations at Hindu College alongside Delhi University Vice Chancellor Professor Yogesh Singh. The minister defended the NEP's three-language policy, emphasizing multilingual learning without imposition of Hindi. He also highlighted Tamil's rich heritage and stressed that NEP, envisioned by Prime Minister Modi, promotes mother tongues while ensuring a level playing field. He accused some of Tamil Nadu people for politicizing the issue, reaffirming the centre's commitment to NEP implementation.
To create a competition among the students, to create a level playing field, we have to come to a common platform. NEP is the new aspirational common platform. Regarding language, I respect all the language. This NEP envisioned by Honorable Prime Minister Modi is giving emphasis to mother tongue. Government of India is committed to implement NEP and there are certain conditions with NEP.
India's national capital Delhi woke up to tremors. An earthquake measuring 4 on the Richter scale hit Delhi-NCR around 5:35 a.m. Indian Standard Time at a depth of about 5 kilometers. The epicenter was reported to be near New Delhi. The tremors, which lasted for a few seconds, were strong enough to be felt in residential areas, causing panic among residents. Many people rushed out of their homes as a precaution. There have been no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Delhi-NCR falls in seismic zone 4, making it prone to moderate to strong earthquakes. Let's now get you some sporting updates as well. First up, golf. Chile's Joaquin Niemann shot a 7-under par final round of 65 to win Live Golf Adelaide at the Grange Golf Club in South Australia on Sunday. Niemann began the final round 3 shots behind co-leaders Mexicans Abraham Ancer and Carlos Ortiz, plus Englishman Sam Horsfield, but 7 birdies and no bogeys saw Niemann shoot to the top of the leaderboard. He finished with a 3-round total of 203, 13 under par, 2 shots clear of Ancer and Ortiz, who both shot 1 under 71. Earlier in International Series India edition in Gurugram, Niemann finished joint third on 2 under after a level par final round with Abraham Ancer. Middlesex Cricket has announced that it has signed New Zealand star batter Kane Williamson for the 2025 season. Williamson will be joining the club and will feature in both the T20 Blast and the Rothesay County Championship. Williamson will be available for at least 10 Middlesex T20 Blast Group fixtures and also play for the club in at least 5 county championship clashes. In his international career, Williamson has made over 360 appearances for the Black Caps, scoring over 18,000 runs. In F1, ahead of the new F1 season, Red Bull's Max Verstappen on Monday said that he hopes the team can improve on last season, where he struggled at times despite winning the Drivers' Championship. Last year, Verstappen won 9 times, less than half his record 2023 haul of 19, and what started predictably enough with 7 wins in the first 10 rounds became a thriller as he went 10 without success. The 27-year-old Dutchman said he is hoping that the team can learn from their mistakes and improve this year. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.